Good evening, everyone. This is Kathy Jack, the city clerk. I just wanted to let everyone know that we are experiencing minor technical difficulties. You will see some of the members of council who are participating remotely on your screen. However, the in-council chambers video is experiencing some difficulty. I can assure you that in council chambers present here is our mayor, Mike Skelly. You will hear his voice when we do the roll call, and he'll be starting the meeting shortly. Also joining with us is our city manager, Stephen Jolly, myself, deputy clerk, Brittany Duarte. We have Angela Gray here from Gray and Gray, Andrea Smith, our director of planning and development, and Shane Brown, our director of public works. So just to get everyone a heads up of who is present physically in the room, although the camera, we are still trying to get it rebooted, but in the meantime, we are going to get started. So Mayor, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Good evening, and thank you for remotely attending tonight's City Council meeting. The camera in the council chamber is set up to show those attending in person, but it's acting up right now. The platform we are using has a raise hand feature. You will notice a picture of a hand in the upper right-hand corner. When we reach the point in the meeting where the public has the opportunity to address council, you can click that button and be given your opportunity to address council. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of
America, to the republic
which stands
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Skelly?
Here.
Councilor Dillabaugh?
Here.
Councilor Fisher?
Here.
Councilor Kennedy?
Here.
Councilor Powers?
Here.
Councilor Reach?
Here.
Councilor Scamperly?
Here.
Quorum present.
We do not have any presentation tonight. We do not have any public hearings tonight. And this brings us to personal appearance. At this time, anyone attending remotely would like to address council, please choose the raise hand feature. This city clerk will recognize you, unmute one person at a time. You will have 5 minutes.
The first individual is registered as Tanya Snyder, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears your line is open.
Good evening. I have been a business owner in the city for over 20 years. I recently sold my commercial building on Main Street and moved my hair salon to my new home. The city staff was very courteous and helpful during this process. As I was working through the process, many questions came in mind concerning other home businesses. In particular, the mayor has been very outspoken in the city pertaining to codes. For full transparency, please verify JMS Mechanicals has a variance to operate at 526 Washington Street, and it allows for on-site support staff to be working at the location. Please also verify that it is in full compliance if a variance was granted. I would also like to confirm when the last code inspection was completed at the location and if it was in full compliance with city code. Since most businesses operating out of a residential building have to pay for multiple water and sewer rates or be metered, also confirm that this is in compliance. I would be happy to FOIL this information, but I'm sure the mayor will want the citizens to have the information in a timely fashion to show that JMS Mechanicals is in full compliance with all city requirements. Thank you.
Thank you. And who's next?
The next individual is registered as Doug Loeffler, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears you are self-muted. It appears your line is open.
Good evening. I recently read the message from Mayor Skelly in the North Country This Week paper on how Ogdensburg is going to be revived in growing the economic opportunities in this community. Throughout the article, it was conveyed to the reader that it all hinges on reducing positions within the fire department. In doing so, you listed five areas that you would use the savings for. 1, repair the Lafayette Street Bridge. State roller cleanup, which is an industrial site. Rehab the cheese plant. Replace seawall along the Maple City Trail. Repairs to City Hall. These are all ambitious and noteworthy projects. Since you said you can't accomplish these projects without projected savings of eliminating 5 positions within the fire department, would you please share with the taxpayers the cost estimates you have on these proposed infrastructure repairs and where they were originated from? To come out and make statements as you did, you must have some figures to back that up. Mayor, majority of the council, city manager, let's be honest to yourselves and to the taxpayers of this community. You are not going to accomplish them projects without state and federal help. This community used to be the envy of the North Country. Now we are only the laughing stock of the North Country, but of New York State as well. Do not kid yourself, people. These are state agencies that are watching us. At some point, this administration should take a step back and look at the big picture they have created for this community after 1 year in office. We have no Parks and Recreation Director. We have no city assessor. We have no fire chief. We have no codes enforcement officer. We have no comptroller. We had a very well-respected police chief that retired early, as did the comptroller and the code enforcement officer. Taxpayers cannot get their questions answered, taking away taxpayers' rights to petition. There's no transparency. There's no teamwork. There's no job development. Employee morale at this all-time low. You continue to use divide and conquer techniques. There's 13 plus workplace violence complaints that the taxpayer has absolutely no knowledge of what happened, since you guys are the judge and jury. And the most recent one was our city manager video in the hallway of City Hall with firefighter Mac. Somebody has watched that. That is a total lack of professionalism on his part. And to the city manager, you are right. I do not like the manner in which you are conducting business for this community. This city is in a crisis, all right, and the crisis is a lack of leadership. Crisis does not necessarily build character, but I'll tell you, crises do tend to reveal character. During these past years of sustained and significant crisis, what seems to be increasingly clear is that the collective character of this administration is broken, and broken badly. The people in this community are what makes this community successful. So you might want to show a little empathy and care for the people of this community. I was raised to care about others. The more you show empathy as a leader, the more it builds trust and loyalty. As for this administration, it is the reverse. They have no empathy. They have showed that they do not care. I think you need to respect everyone. You want respect, it starts with you. Poor leaders do not respect others and are not honest and are not trustworthy. In closing, I will say an ineffective leader are people with big egos. Success in government is a team sport. It is not an individual sport. People with big egos take the credit for their success, but they do not admit the mistakes they make. They only talk about themselves. And I'll leave you with a quote from my good friend Donnie Hooper. Politics got you into that job, and politics is going to get you out of it. And for this administration, I'll add a little sidebar to that. Social media helped get you elected, and right now social media is going to get you unelected. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
The next individual is registered as David Price, and I will unmute that individual now. Piers, your line is open, sir.
Good evening, council. I just wanted to address a comment that was made by a counselor a couple of meetings ago. After several people spoke that were familiar voices, a counselor made the comment that it was like Groundhog Day. Presumably, he was referencing a movie starring Bill Murray. He said he played the lead character, Phil Connors. Phil was forced to relive the same day over and over again. It happened to be Groundhog Day. And so what Phil did in order to escape this travesty of having to relive this day over and over again was he tried to at first enrich himself. He went out and he was on his own conquest to get everything he wanted. But try as he might, he kept waking up at 6 o'clock, which is ironic because that's the time this meeting now starts. 6 o'clock every morning to the same song over and over to live the same day. Then he switched from that self-fulfilling, that self-aggrandizing policy to self-defeating. So he tried to actually kill himself multiple times to escape Groundhog's Day. And he couldn't do it. It was only when Phil Connor finally switched to doing good for other people, when he really switched to being a good person, reaching out and being kind and being generous and welcoming people in the community that he had started to become a member of. That was when he was able to finally escape that Groundhog Day feeling. So I'm going to say to you, counselors, to escape the Groundhog Day feeling of the same people calling in every meeting, calling you out for the same things. Why don't we skip over all the mean stuff and get right to being good to people and being kind to people? The sad things.
Oh, just
My friend, we're going to hear the same song
oh,
over and over.
what the hell
And
is
you'll
going on?
remember those which should show up in the words, "I got you, babe." We're not going away.
That it?
Saturday and Sunday looking quiet, but another cold Saturday and Saturday.
Does somebody have a radio on?
Your line, there's a lot of
Does somebody
background.
have a radio on?
City side where it's nice and cozy and the entire inventory on 55 inches.
Kathy, can you mute that?
My friend, this is no warning. Now, snowflakes that partially melt, then freeze as they descend, best describes freezing rain and gravel or sleets. What do you think?
I have muted every member of council. And we're still getting some sort of background.
That's what you used to do in high school, gravel.
Mr. Price, are you still speaking?
Wrestle. Yeah, wrestle. No, you got some mustard cheese and some soup. Yeah, Syracuse taking on Virginia. Yes, Virginia.
It has to be. Okay. Here's, no, it's still there.
Is it possible to,
It's not a member of the public because they are all muted. They only get unmuted when they're addressing council. So it has to be one of our panelists, which would be any of the people attending that I did an audio check with prior to the start.
we're doing public participation, can we mute them all? Got it?
I found it, sir.
Okay.
So let me see if there's any other hands raised. I do not see any other hands raised, Mayor.
Okay. So this brings us to correspondence. Do we have any correspondence?
We do not.
Okay. Now we are at our consent agenda. So consent agenda that claims as enumerated in general fund warrant number 02-2021 in the amount of $1,002,457.44, and library warrant number 02-2021 in the amount of $10,785.60, and capital fund warrant number 02-2021 in the amount of $35,588.50, and community development warrant number 02-2021 in the amount of $45, and community renewal fund warrant number 02-2021 in the amount of $0 is audited, be and same hereby are ordered paid. I so move. Can we have a second?
I'll second it.
Aye. Kathy, would you call the roll?
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Oh, okay, there you go. All right. I just have one question pertaining to it. It'd be a payout on the 14th to Zoll Medical Corporation, $78,000.
Counselor, if you can hear me, that is the money we noted, Zoll Medical, that is the money we budgeted for Ogdensburg Rescue Squad to buy the defibrillators.
Thank you.
Counselor Powers, your vote.
I'm sorry, yes.
Counselor Reish,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
approved.
We have 5 appointments tonight. I make a motion to reappoint William Flynn and Pat Redden Sargent to 3-year terms on the zoning board. Terms to begin January 25th, 2021 and end December 31st, 2023. I so move.
I'll second.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reish,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
approved.
I make a motion to reappoint Steve Schlater and Malcolm Castleman to 2-year terms on the zoning board. Terms to begin January 25th, 2021, and then December 31st, 2022. I so move.
I'll second it.
Kathy, would you call the roll?
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reish,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
approved.
I make a motion to reappoint Chris Lowry to a 3-year term as an alternate on the zoning board. Term to begin January 25th, 2021, and then December 31st, 2023. I so move.
Second.
I'll second it.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reish,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
approved.
I make a motion to reappoint Tim Redmond and Frank Beretta to 3-year terms on the planning board. Terms to begin January 25th, 2021, and then December 31st, 2023. I so move.
Second.
I'll second it.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reish,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
approved.
I make a motion to appoint Laura Pearson, Tom Hannon, and Jim Morrison to 3-year terms on the Ogdensburg Land Bank. Terms to begin January 25th, 2021, and end December 31st, 2023. So move.
Second.
Second it.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reish,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
approved.
And this brings us to items for council action. Our only item for business will be read by City Manager Stephen Jelly.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to execute change order number 7, a contract for the wastewater treatment plant capital improvement project contract with Jet Industries Incorporated.
I'll move that.
We have a second?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
Could we please get an explanation for the public, please?
Yes, Counselor. So this change order is to finish the last parts of the projects that are associated with wastewater treatment plant. Item A, or alternate item A, is the waste receiving station. This will allow us to bring in waste for haulers, truck haulers, to bring waste to our plant, which will generate revenue. The next item, item B, is the rehabilitation of our Main Street pump station, our South Water Street pump station, and the Psychiatric Center pump station. These are all items that are essential to finishing the project as we know it. I want to note to all the council, these are not items that we need to have to finish the plant itself. The plant itself, all the items have been approved or in motion. These are items that also need to be done. As I said, the first one for the receiving station is at the plant, but it doesn't impact the efficiency of the plant. But it is an item that will allow us to generate additional revenue. The second item, most important in here, is the lift stations. So while our lift stations are all operating now, each of them are in some state of disrepair, and it is highly recommended that we execute this project now while we have the funds available in the project. So I can answer any questions. I know we've had some discussion about this. We've had a couple meetings with the Development Authority, and I just need to understand where council is on really what I would consider the last mile of completing this project as it was specified.
These are
Your Honor? Mike, Your Honor?
Yes.
Madam Clerk, I'd like to make a motion that we put this off for 90 days until after the state budget's done, and allow our state representatives to make one more bite at getting us more money. A lot of things have changed in government on the state level and federal level, and reading the governor's proposed 2021 budget, there are monies that's going to be available. And if we just go ahead and say we're going to do this with our own money, who's going to want to help you down the road and give you back your money? So I think we have to look out for the ratepayers and taxpayers, and this is our time. That there's no reason, there's no rush to this. You just heard the manager. These are add-ons. They're not required. Could they be needed down the road? I heard when the project started on how dangerous the facility was and what the necessity was to do it. I've kind of come to terms with that, but as far as just throwing another $5.1 million at this point without making one last ditch effort to try to get more funds, I gotta say, I just as soon give it some time, a little bit of time, and see if the budget passes and all those recommendations that are in there. He's got all kinds of money in there for this. Not only this, but the water infrastructure. I think we might be able to get it.
I'll second that. If that was a motion to table, I'll second that motion.
Well, right, so we got a second to amend what are you looking to do? To table this? What are you looking to do here?
Table it.
I don't know what budget you're looking at, because there's a tale of two tapes here with the governor's budget. There's a $6 billion option, a $15 billion option. There's not a whole lot of play money in this budget. Typically, the aid has been cut significantly through this. And correct me if I'm wrong, Steve Gelli, this is to make this wastewater treatment plant whole prior to the $49 million that was budgeted. Am I correct to assume that?
Well, it'll complete the project as the initial project was designed, Counselor. Again, as I said in the outset, I think it's important to note, I wouldn't call anything here nice to have. I don't want to characterize it as that. The wastewater treatment plant is its own project, its own area. The receiving station.
With the understanding that with a project of this magnitude, that there's going to be significant probably work that's going to, that may come back into play here. But I don't know what budget you're looking at, Steve. But you know, I see in the local government aspect of this budget, pretty much basically either share services or get off the pot. You know, because the hand's not going to be out. There's he's basically directing as to how local governments are to operate. And I think putting this on the back burner is just going to come back and bite us in the rear at the end of the day. And it is going to need to be addressed. And that's the burden that we're going to have to bear down the road. But you know, it is a revenue stream. It will bring in revenue over the long haul once it's completed. And, you know, I think, my opinion, I think that we should probably maybe at least get a good portion of this done going forward. And, you know, to suggest that this wasn't in your wheelhouse a year ago from today would be not prudent thinking. And in my opinion, this is just my opinion, but, you know, going forward.
In response to that, Mike, I wasn't sitting there when this was passed. You were sitting there, and
Yeah.
these items were in there, but you guys didn't adopt them. Oh, yes, they were. You need to go back and read it or check with the governor. I don't care, but they were in there.
Project that we put forward. Governor,
No. The project budget was $43,220,164. Okay. Also in there were these three alternate things that could be done, which total $5.1 million and some change. So it was in front of you at that time, but you chose not to do it. Why, I don't know. And if you had then, we wouldn't be having this discussion. And I don't know if it was to sell this plant, this whole deal for the 43 million, and that would get by. But now we're going to try to climb it to 51 million on the ratepayers and taxpayers' money. And I think we could wait, yield on the side of caution, and see if there's something else there available. I'm sure you're not sitting next to the governor on a daily basis.
No, I'm not, but I get his budget, and I've gone through it with a fine-tooth comb because it affects 30,000 of my members. And I'm quite familiar with the budget, and I'm quite familiar with it every year it comes out.
Well,
no, I'm not sitting next to the governor. Neither are you.
Thank God.
For both of us.
Mayor, Mayor, can I have the floor? My voice is gone. I'm doing my best here, but I'm a little bit concerned about our indebtedness overall. I went through the end of the year audit last year. We had $7.5 million in debt. It was 18.87% of our statutory debt limit. And we just added another 43 million and are proposing to add another 5 million on top of that. Our debt service on just bonds is $550,000 a year. You could do a lot with that kind of money if we didn't have so much debt. That doesn't include, I don't think it includes the Ready project. It doesn't include the $1 million in pay raises over 6 years. If you don't use fund balance, the sewer rates that I've seen are going to go up 47% as a result of this project. That's a bitter pill to swallow for people paying water and sewer bills. And lastly, our Moody's rating is a Ba1 rating. It's well below the median rate for cities throughout the nation. And that's because of debt and pension liability and our moderate financial position. So I think it would be smart for all of us to work harder to obtain grant funding. And in my conversations with Senator Schumer's office and Mr. Jelly's conversations with them, it was my understanding the way we left it was that we were eligible for federal funds through USDA, provided that we rebid this portion of it. And I think that's probably the approach that we take so that the federal funds fund this and the people paying the sewer bills don't. So I'm in favor of tabling it and working harder at getting that $5 million in grant assistance.
Do we have that in writing somewhere?
What do you mean?
You just said that the USDA would fund it if we rebid it. Do you have that in writing somewhere?
I know that we're eligible. We just have to write the grant.
You know, I just personally, I want to start making money off this project. This project was designed to make Ogdensburg a little bit more ready to handle some industry, things like that. I understand the debtness. Trust me, I'm paying it. I'm paying it just as much as you guys are. These were put on the side as alternates. As in other words, we didn't have to do them right now, and we still don't. We could put them off 90 days, but I think it's going to cost us more money in the end. And personally, I'd like to start making money right now. I don't see any reason why we can't continue to apply for these grants. And if that USDA money is still there for the sake of rebidding this, as you claim, then it's still there. So I don't want to put this off 90 days, but I do want to know the city manager's opinion.
Dan, you want to make money off the ratepayers, and you're going to because we're going to have to raise the rates. That's how you make money on a sewer plant. That's your position.
I'd like to say something.
What-
These are
what-
alternate. These are our own pump stations. They're nothing to do with revenue from Hubleton. These are our own. They're in disrepair. I believe strongly with the city manager that they need to be done. And I also agree with Steve and John that I would like to see us get more money to help us with that. Steve, if we put this off for 90 days, we can still get this accomplished through this existing contract.
Yeah, I believe we can. I've got the Chief Operating Officer for the Development Authority, Carrie Tuttle, on the line here, and also Charles Pryor from EDR. I just, again, Councilor Scampoli, to your question, my opinion is this is work that's critical we need to do, but certainly I don't want to miss an opportunity to find more money for the city. And I think even when this project is closed out, it'll be a top priority for us to continue to find ways to get our elected officials to help send us money to reduce this debt. So I don't believe 90 days is going to hurt us to make one more run at funding. I really do believe we've got to go direct though with our state representatives and our federal representatives on any of these things to get it. So, but I'd like to let Carrie just tell me, Carrie, do you think is there any reason that 90 days is going to hurt us as by way of the pricing that we've recently been given from JET?
Good evening, folks. This is Carrie here. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Carrie.
Okay, great. So in terms of the contractor's pricing, we would have to go back to the contractor and confirm if they would be willing to hold their pricing for 90 days. But I did want to just speak about the option of packaging this up and looking at RD funding again. We would have to, if that was the board's idea on how they wanted to approach this, then that would be a completely separate avenue, because as you'll recall, with the way that we set up the project with the PLA, that was the issue that rural development had. So we would essentially have to break this out, put together a separate bid package, bid this separately, get pricing, and run through a whole RD application process. You know, if that was the way that the council wanted to go. That is not something that would happen in 90 days. That would be a pretty involved process to do. There would be costs associated with bidding this project. Again, there would be costs associated with putting that rural development application together. So I just want to make it clear, like within this 90-day timeframe, I don't see an answer coming back from RD, because there's a lot of upfront work that we would have to do to even get into a position to being able to apply for funding again.
I would like the Development Authority of the North Country to start work on that right away, actually, and we can revisit it in 90 days and we can see what kind of progress has been made.
Carrie, Council Powers here. What would the potential damage be for additional, or not damage, I shouldn't say damage, that's the wrong phrase. I guess what I'm talking about here would be something along the lines of how it would impact in the trades today with the lack of work. I read somewhere recently that the trades are taking a pretty good hit across the state, probably across the nation during this pandemic. And with that being said, how much of an impact would that have down the road as far as bidding purposes and cost effectiveness going forward? And just one other comment here. The whole premise behind the outside users were to additionally, with a setup with Hubleton, was to possibly look at other draws from other townships such as Oswego, potentially Morristown and Lisbon as well. That was the driver behind the whole expansion in the beginning. But at any rate, Carrie, I don't know if you have any feel on that. I imagine the executive director would, going forward with any kind of project of this magnitude, even a $5 million project compared to a $40 million contract. What would that potentially look like a year from now compared to today?
Sure. So I can touch on that briefly, and also Charles Pryor may want to weigh in this. But what I can tell you is we've seen project costs significantly higher than what the engineers' estimates have been on projects across the board in the last year and a half. There's impacts from COVID that are associated with this. There's impacts with variability in equipment suppliers, difficulty meeting schedule, difficulty meeting demand, and that has escalated prices. So while I think this has created a lot of problems for a lot of projects, on our end, what we're seeing is escalating costs. And I know that EDR took a hard look at this to see, if they thought these costs were reasonable and where these costs would go if we ended up handling this as a separate project. And so I'll turn it over to Charles to see if he has anything to add to that, because certainly our recommendation was we felt this was the most cost-effective way to handle this, is to do this under the existing contract and to break it out and separate it as a separate project.
Thank you.
Hey folks, it's Charles from EDR. Good evening. Appreciate the time. To Carrie's point, when we first looked at the alternates and looking at it a couple of different ways, breaking it out separately, pursuing funding separately, you're looking at a completely separate, unparalleled path. So separate administration, separate inspection, separate finance and grant administration. You lose the efficiency that you gain by utilizing the contractor that you have today. I think we're getting a lot of advantages with them being on site and conducting this alternate work in parallel with their ongoing work. They're already located in the city. Many of their staff have rented places in the city. So there's a lot of efficiencies to be gained with them continuing to be located right in the city, I think, in doing this work. The other component I'll mention here is the contractor has committed to is committed to maintaining their price from the bid time frame, which was well over a year ago now, in the interest of completing this work in parallel with their other contract work. And quite honestly, from my viewpoint, we do not see that very often in this type of work. Typically, you would see a markup adjustments because of the conditions out there in the market today for labor, for materials and the such, even after it's still going through the COVID period where we've experienced, delays on significant pieces of equipment. They're not bringing any of those items forward with performing these alternates. So it seems like a scenario that could work out really, really beneficial to the city.
Thank you.
Hey, Carrie, Steve, can you hear me? Just so we're clear for council, the USDA grant that we're talking about would be a maximum of how much?
We don't know that, Steve, but I can tell you on the prior funding package that we had for the entire project, the grant that was awarded was a $1 million grant, and the loan was the balance. So, this is a much smaller project than the entire project. This would basically be breaking out a separate, roughly $5 million project that would be presented to rural development. It would be actually be more than that, because you would have the not only the change order for the contractor, but you'd also have all of the separate admin and technical services that Charles was mentioning, that would be basically wrapped up into the existing project. So, maybe you're looking at, I don't know, 6 million or something if you add on the additional tech services and admin. I think I can't imagine a scenario where you'd see more than $1 million and potentially less than that. I mean, I have projects that I'm working on right now where there's no grant. It's loan only with rural development.
And
so you don't know that. You can't know until you run through the process. You basically have to go through the whole application process in order to get a determination from them of what their award will be. And it's dependent on what other projects they have in the queue and what the funding availability is at the time of application.
Hubleton, you did the Hubleton project too, Carrie, and I think you got them with their assistance in that, and the senator, I think 45%, if my memory serves me right, with grant funding for the entire project, whereas ours is like less than 25%.
I think it was 9 million out of 13.
Yeah. So I don't know what happened with Ogdensburg, but
sure, I can talk to you a little bit about the RD funding for Ogdensburg versus the RD funding for Hubleton. There was a special situation that came into play. So the way that rural development works their funding is they essentially, each state manages their own funding pool, and then they also have a federal pool of funding. And if money is de-obligated from projects, so for example, when Ogdensburg's project didn't go forward, that $1 million, that money that they had committed to a project that doesn't move forward actually goes back to their state pool and then their federal pool. And so at the end of their fiscal year, they actually run through a process where if there's pooled money and there are projects that are ready to go, there's an opportunity occasionally for projects to pick up some of this extra pooled money. So Hubleton sort of won the lottery because they had a project that was in the queue that was ready to go, and they ended up being able to take advantage of some of that pooled money that if New York State wasn't able to take advantage of it with projects that were ready to go, the money would have went back and got pooled federally. So that was in a very unusual situation that Hubleton just happened to be in the right place at the right time to be able to get that funding. But that is not part of their normal award process. That is the largest RD grant that I have ever seen on a project in the 20 plus years that I've been doing this. So that's definitely not the norm.
So why would technical services go up so much when it's already designed And the engineers EDR today is making $3.7 million on this project. You know, I mean, everything's designed. All you have to do is repackage it. So I don't know why you come up with another $1 million in costs.
So I don't know what those numbers would be. We haven't figured this out, but you would basically have to put together a separate project budget. We would have to assume some date of when this project was going to be completed sometime in the future, right? Because if we're going to go through an RD application process, that's going to take several months to get through. We're going to have to go through bidding. That bidding process is usually, you know, $30,000+ is pretty typical for bidding. There's advertising, there's on-site pre-bid meetings that the contractors are going to need to come and check out the facilities. There's a review that the engineers have to do once the bids come in. There's a reviewing bonds and insurance. There's some legal fees associated with that. You would have to do a separate bond resolution because this is going to be a standalone project. You're going to have a bond council agreement that is separate from the existing agreements that we have. You're going to have a separate local council agreement. So there's a lot of additional work when you take a project like this and you make it be its own project. The additional engineering costs wouldn't be associated with design. They would be associated with the inspection services. So once the project goes through bidding, the bidding process is obviously would be all new. But then once you're into construction, you have an on-site inspector that's required. Rural development requires 100% on-site inspection. So you won't have the synergies that you have right now where you have one on-site inspector that's overseeing all of the work that's being done, which could be this pump station work plus the wastewater treatment plant work. You would have a separate inspector because this would be not part of this existing project. And so if the timing didn't line up, or depending on how this all worked out, that you would have that separate RPR, or resident project representative inspection services, and then also some construction administration. So Charles, I don't know if you have anything to add on that.
So the best scenario for the state to provide extra grant money, and you know, maybe the Development Authority of the North Country, as executive director and chairman, could work on that for us. Because if it was state money, we could move forward with the existing contractor. It's the best of both worlds.
Ain't gonna happen.
Not with this budget, not with this state budget. No way, no way.
Well, there's $400 million in the governor's budget for clean water projects like this.
The wastewater infrastructure.
And it's his proposed budget. I can.
That's right. So now's the time to make the request. That's what we have elected officials for.
Okay, Mike, you got a motion on the floor. Can beat this to death.
Don't forget, people, we also have a water treatment plant that will be looking real hard for grants too. So motion is to table it. Would you call the roll?
Yes.
Could we make it 60 days instead of 90 days? Could that be?
I'd rather make it 180 days.
What is it? You have an amendment on the floor. What is it?
It's 90 days.
90 days, okay.
The current motion on the floor is to table it for 90 days. So this is a roll call to table. Counselor Reish?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
No.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
No.
Counselor Powers?
No.
Approved. So now we have to do a roll call as to table. Tabled. I'm sorry. It's my error, Mayor. You're correct. Motion is tabled.
Motion is tabled.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, could I just ask one final question?
Yes, John.
Steve, I just came across that with our existing debt, not including, I think the Ready project plus this 40 million, we were at about 18 to 20% of our statutory debt limit. Could you let us know what that 40 million extra, I guess it's closer to 50 million, does in terms of our statutory debt limit before we vote on it again?
Yes,
I'm just
absolutely.
curious.
Yeah, I'll get that to you. And then the other thing I sent all of you tonight was the latest project budget cost certification. And what I wanted you to have that for was it breaks out at the very top of that page the exact funding, so you know how much is grants, how much is the zero interest loan, which is the one marked EFC hardship loan, and then the EFC subsidized loan is the one right now that's at about 1.675 interest rate. So you see exactly how much we'll be financing and how much will be will be paid for with grant funding. But we'll research, John, how that will affect our debt limit.
Yeah, and with that, Steve, can we also have a synopsis and analysis between the two different projects here, wastewater treatment plant program and the Ready program? I don't believe one really plays into the other too significantly as far as any, which would create any debt ratio. And I'm sure Andrea could probably put something together in about 5 minutes to share everybody with that as we come down this pipe, so that we're not adding one into the other that doesn't relate.
If it takes 5 minutes, I'll wait.
Yeah,
You'll have it in 90 days.
Thank you.
This brings us to old business, and we will begin with the city manager, Steve Jelly.
Good evening, councilors. Just wanted to provide some updates on topics under our old business. First, you'll see on your agenda is the 2020 budget closeout. And I just wanted to update you that we're working on that. We expect to have a brief on the closeout by the second meeting in February, the actual closeout. But I do want to give you an update. I sent you 2 things tonight in the email that just showed at the moment. And again, I want to emphasize these are preliminary numbers as of the end of the year. The first is showing where our revenues hit. And right now we're showing it about $567,000 off what our revenue projections were. But a couple caveats in there just to be clear for everybody listening. The first is a good chunk of that is $341,000 that was the 20% withhold from our state aid, but we are expecting to get about 15% of that back if the governor's budget goes through as proposed. The next significant chunk is $527,000 roughly that has not been realized yet in real property taxes. So, and again, I won't read the whole sheet to you, but I wanted you to see where we were with our major sources of revenue that have been taken in so far and where we've had some shortfall. Again, if we get a good chunk of that, the state aid back, we'll be in good shape. The $88,000, the consolidated highway aid, the CHIPS funding. Again, keep in mind that's money that we bill as we use it. So again, if you subtract that 88,000 from the 576, it brings down our lost revenue significantly. So we really have done well there for I think a year that we were all holding our breath, not knowing. And then and the good news here again is the sales tax. I think we've all been talking about that, and you can see our final sales tax came out 376,000, almost 77,000 above what the projection was to be. So that's good news, and that really did buoy some of the losses that we had in other areas. Then moving over to the expense report, again, I just want to keep cautioning that again we've got plenty of 2020 numbers, invoices, and things that will come in, but roughly right now we're sitting, ahead on the expenditures, a little better than $1 million now on what we had planned to spend. We spent about $1 million less. Again, you can go through and see the areas where we saved money, and a lot of that is places where we held off positions that were not filled in last year's budget or abolished in the spring of the year. So those cuts that were made in the spring really prepared us had we had more significant losses due to the COVID crisis, and they certainly helped us stay buoyed with the governor's cut. So again, this is real preliminary. I did just want to give you something to show you that where we are. I think no matter how we break out, when this is all said and done, we'll end 2020 in the black, and that's good news for a year that could have been a lot worse off. The plan going forward, so that we have some routine, is that the second meeting of every month, the comptroller will give a budget report. So the second meeting in February, the intent will be to brief the 2020 closeout and where we're at that time. And it will also be to update council on where we are for the closeout of January. Not necessarily a closeout, but what the status is of our money. So you're getting a more routine brief on where we are budget-wise. So look for that at the second meeting of the month. Will be again our budget briefs.
That'd be great. Appreciate that.
If there's any questions I can answer now on the 2020 closeout or what I just covered, I'll pause for anyone to jump in.
I don't know if this is old business, but I just got a text you, and it's correct that we just wrote a check to the county for uncollected property taxes, but do we still owe a substantial amount? I've got a text you saying it's $825,000 that we owe the county.
We do, Mayor, and it's a topic that I've got a little more information to bring you all. But as you're aware, I sent the council an update, a while ago, talking about to date what is owed to the county in uncollected real property tax. We paid the 2020. You saw that in the warrant that you're approving tonight. We paid that. So we are working on some options to bring to council, then to propose back to the county of how we're gonna clean that up. It's 825 or 30,000, somewhere in that range.
How far back does this go?
Well, we've got some all the way back to 2003, 4, 5. Then we skipped 5 or 6 years, but ultimately 03, 05, if I remember the farthest back ones, and we skipped like 06 or 07. So there's quite a few years in there. I haven't been able to find any documentation or anything. I think it was just an agreement between comptrollers trying to help us get along. I just think it got away from us, and we need to make this whole. The county has asked us now, what is our plan? So again, the initial plan was we paid the 2020 amount, and I'll bring courses of action to council on how I think we can remedy this overall debt going forward.
Was this figured in? Was this figured in financials? When like our fund balance is that we believe we have a fund balance of this much money. Was this included in that?
No. Well, so these have been on our books. This is verifiable debt that's been on our books as a payable. So it's been there. It's been illustrated. We just have to address it. And the county's been patient with us. I think they'll be patient I think they just want to know that we've got a plan moving forward how to do it.
I think we do need a solution and pay it.
Okay.
Pay our debt, as we can.
Your analysis points out the loss of state revenue last year and state budget this year. I just wanted to point out is a 10% reduction proposed, or $170,800. So we should be aware of that.
Thank you, John.
So what's our projected fund?
Say it again, Dan.
Our projected fund balance, or are we going to get that information?
Yeah, Councilor. I just want to hold off on that now. Again, I think again the way this year worked out, we're going to be in the black, so our fund balance will be increasing some. But I'd like to get all the final numbers in before we talk about that. It's hard to take a number back once I give you a number.
Okay, I get it.
What would, Steve, what would be the biggest factors that you're waiting on? Is it the last sales tax receipt, or is there a multitude of last minute receipts that you're waiting on, final year-end receipts?
Yes, but no, I believe we've moved on all of our revenue coming in. We've gotten the last sales tax. This is really just a matter of giving the comptroller's office time to close out all the previous invoices. There's still things rolling in, that were bought in December. So it's just making sure we've crossed, every bit we can. The last thing I want to do is have anything rolled into 2021 that we should have paid with 2020 funds, because we've got money here and we're a lot tighter budgeted for 2021. So I'm just crossing every T, dotting every I, making sure we've got every invoice, and then drawing those numbers. Our revenue at the moment, I think we've come. The negatives largely were in program areas. This money we didn't collect, fines, forfeitures, code fees, things like that. But we've gotten everything else in.
Okay, thank you.
And Steve, do you have an indication of why we're down 527,000 in real property tax collection? Are there a couple of big entities out there, or is it all small ones, or?
No, I don't have any implication just yet. Again, that'll be part of the final closeout as we do it. I don't know that there's any significant entity. I think this is not a lot higher than what it normally is for the end of December. I suspect once we report this to you in February, where people have come in and paid taxes, at the last minute, or they paid them in January, I think we'll see this number reduced.
Okay, thanks.
Is there any other old business for anyone?
Andy, I'm assuming Andy's on the phone or online in some capacity.
Andrea, she's right here in person.
Can we get a quick update on the Ready project and where we're at with that, please? Just for clarity.
If we could do this, I got just a couple more items under old business. Let me just get through these, and then we'll. I think we've got a place in here. Andrea's going to be giving some updates, so we'll let her jump in there. I just want to give everybody an update. Again, Police Reform tomorrow is the first meeting of our steering group, made up of the school superintendent, chief of police, the district attorney's office, public defender's office, member of local clergy, and 3 citizens, and led by myself. So tomorrow will be our first meeting. I believe we'll come out of that with some strategic direction and some milestones and benchmarks for meeting the governor's deadline, the 1st of April. And I will transmit that to all the counselors just as soon as I transmit the meeting minutes. You'll have those who know what we're doing. I was hoping while we're sitting here, and once I jump off, I'm hoping to find out tonight is the vote from the for the extension of our sales tax with the county finance committee. So we're hoping for good things there, keeping our fingers crossed. And then last, I just wanted to give an update with the fire department. We do continue to work on the transition with the fire departments, and continue to work with the union. We had some really good discussion the last day or so on some collective ways to work together. And I hope that going forward, we're gonna be able to work some things out a little more closely. So I'll pause now for anything that's in the old business category that I just covered, if there's questions.
There's 3 pieces of legislation in the proposed budget, state budget, that deal with police reform. So your committee should take a look at those and maybe get ahead of those as part of what you're doing.
Yes, sir. Understood. You want to do the Ready? I just give an update now where we're at with Ready.
The Ready report. That was a little joke there.
I'm just looking for an update and clarity as far as what the Ready project is compared to the wastewater treatment plant, for clarity.
Compared to the wastewater treatment plant?
Well, there seems, just an update on the Ready project will do. Thank you.
Okay, so on Monday, January 11th, we received updated engineering reports that I reviewed with the Director of Public Works, the City Manager, and the Mayor the following Tuesday morning. That brings our designs to probably about 40% engineering. It's more than 30 and less than 60%. We need to get to 60% before we can submit our applications for permits to the state agencies. We had a follow-up call that Friday with the state agencies to discuss those engineering reports in draft form and some of the city's concerns as it pertains specifically to the budget. And we have just received, I haven't yet been able to go through them yet, but we have just received updated alternatives to start kind of getting the design closer with the budgets that have actually been allocated through the Ready Awards. So we're still very much in the design process. And we're working towards a grant disbursement agreement with our funding agency, which is the Dormitory Authority of New York State. Our implementation agency for all 4 of our projects is the Department of State. So we do have 4 ready projects, one of which is for the Maple City Trail and Seawall, and there are 3 others that comprise work along our St. Lawrence riverfront from Little Park to Caroline Street. And it does include re-envisioning our parkland, our open space and parkland, to ensure that it is more resilient to future flooding. Primarily, that's the goal. It also does address economic development from the perspective of increasing opportunities for things like transient docking. And obviously, we're looking at a pavilion, which was discussed a little bit at the public meeting that we had back in the fall. So we are on track, although as I guess was mentioned earlier this evening by, with regard to the wastewater treatment facility, budgets are coming in significantly higher than they were originally projected back in 2019 when these projects were conceived of and awarded. So we obviously have to work within the constraints that we're looking at today in the construction world of tomorrow and anticipating significant cost increases. So we are having to kind of rethink through some of the design elements and come up with alternatives that will enable us to meet our goals within the budget that we have.
That would be able to get us to an engineering point quicker, get us to that 60% with a little scale back, safe to say.
We're hoping not to have to scale back on the overall implementation itself. Obviously, we're trying to find ways to achieve the project goals without a significant scope change, but we are cognizant that a scope change may be the only way to get in line with the budget restraints at this point in time. No decision has been made on that. Obviously, those types of decisions and will be brought to council. We just haven't narrowed them in quite enough.
Like one example, along the Atchagachi River, removing the existing wall in that the state budget they have for riprap along the waterfront. We would like a wall, and that came in at $500,000 higher, which means the city would have to come up with $500,000 more. And that in what Doug Lawther brought up, that is one of the numbers I had, is for $500,000, the city would have enough money to do a wall instead of riprap, allow people to get up to the river. That being said, I think that has changed since, hasn't it? Could you tell us about the new number, Andrea?
Well, the budget did go up significantly on that particular project with regard to repairing the damaged seawall. The engineering team has had to go back and really kind of re-strategize on alternatives. We've gone back to looking at where it might make sense to have riprap, where we may have to sacrifice on the wall
still keeping some portions with wall, maybe looking at gabion baskets as an alternative to a limestone wall or a ready rock wall. So the last budget that we actually received before the iterations that I just received was 4.1 million, and that's for the project that was budgeted and awarded at 2 million, conceptually agreed to at 2.5 million, and now has an engineering estimate of 4.1 million. So there's a lot of work to be done to bring the projects back into shape with the budget, and the engineers and the state agencies are all actively working to do that, to bring a proposal back to the council. And the mayor has been engaged along with the city manager and other department heads, kind of thinking through what those alternatives might look like. So that's really the best update I can give to you right now. It's still very much a work in process. Again, we're probably roughly at about 40%, and we're a bit further along with the projects on the St. Lawrence River that we haven't seen the cost increases that we have with regard to the Maple City Trail.
Andrea, will we get to, when you hit the 60% before it goes to the engineering, will we be able to see somewhat of a rough draft?
Yeah, we can certainly work with the mayor and the city manager to bring a presentation to the council as we get ready to apply for our permitting and before we finalize our 60%, obviously before we finalize our 60% engineering reports.
How much longer do you think it'll take to get to the 60?
I don't want to commit to a time frame, Councilor. As I said, we're in terms of our Maple City Trail project, we're substantially over budget, so we're really taking a hard look at how to accomplish the goals of that project within the funding that's available or close to it. So
I can tell you, everyone, we're at a meeting. It was a 4-hour meeting, and everyone was involved. The Corps of Engineers, the DEC, everyone, and it was all going pretty good for all the, all the agencies. And at the last minute, FEMA came in and everything stopped. Had to go back, I believe it was 1985, and Andrea they had to do research all the way back to the flow rates in the Oswegatchie River. I mean, there's we got to see about clams. You've got it is the obstacles are. I don't know how staff does it. It's almost overwhelming.
Imagine it is overwhelming.
I'd be very interested at this point in time to have a council workshop that's open to the public to review the budget and the conceptual drawings where they're at this time. But it sounds like it's moving along nice, Andrea, and I'm sure it's a lot of work, so I appreciate it.
Is there any other old business? Anything? Okay, we're on to new business. Yippee. Steve Jelly will do some new business.
Okay, so I covered the 2021 budget update plan under the old business with 2020, so I'll move on unless anyone's got questions on that. Okay, sewer rate projections. I wasn't trying to be evasive on sewer rates as they relate to the wastewater treatment plant project. But I am trying to make the point that the project is underway and we need to make decisions on that going forward. Now, with that being said, I know what's on all the councilors' minds is where are we going with rates. So what I sent you in the email later this afternoon, and there's no decisions tonight, I'll explain quickly what's here. So as you're looking at these, you understand what you're digesting. We are really going through a pretty significant analysis of what the sewer rate recommendations to council will be. You can see one of the things that we've done is we've pushed the projection period out to 2030 because I want council to at least see that far of where we believe we're going. The goal here, if you look at those 3 sheets quickly, is to have a rate plan that, you know, has a modest 2, 3, 4% rate increase on an annual basis to pay for the operations and service the debt. The other 2 sheets I sent you just illustrate a couple things. One is the notion that we want to maintain a fund balance, a contingency fund balance, if you will, of about 20% of operating expenses. So what that shows you there is we've got some fund balance potentially to use to pay down some of the debt initially to really keep the rates paid down for a number of years until it takes over on their own. And then the last sheet I sent you just shows if we were trying to manage this year by year, what it would look like currently. Now, again, what I want you to see tonight is these are the formats that we're working in. What we will be back again in February with a little more detail, and then probably a little more again in March, is really the significant deep dive analysis on exactly where we are. I'm not calling into question anyone's logic or numbers of the process here. It's just a lot of these projections were done, you know, 3, 4 years ago, and I want to make sure that we've got accurate numbers, accurate projections, and that we've gone through each and every item. What is key to figuring the rate here, the starting point, is the very basic premise of figuring out what does it cost to treat a gallon of waste. And so what I'm trying to make sure is that we have included each and every gross cost, whatever it is, that we put in this formula and calculation that ultimately comes up with our what does it cost to treat a gallon of waste. So once I know that we have that, then we can start moving forward on, again, ensuring that our projections on the revenue side or the expense side are correct, and moving forward looking at what the revenues are going to be. So again, these numbers that I'm putting in front of you tonight are illustrations based on rough numbers that we have right now. Most of these numbers are from the numbers previously projected. So I am saying to you, we need a little more time. This is a big project. There are lots and lots of things involved in figuring out what our cost of this will be. EDR, our engineer firm, and the development authority were instrumental in starting this process, and they're certainly instrumental now in us going back and reviewing how we got those calculations. And Angela Gray and her firm are being very helpful also in putting these together again for us and helping make sure that we've captured each and every cost that we need to capture. So we will be back again with another update, but I just want council to see this is the direction we're going in, trying not to have any year where the rate significantly spikes, but also I don't want to underrate at this point a plan that draws our fund balance down to zero. It sort of defeats the purpose of the fund balance contingency. So I'm trying to cover a lot of bases, but ultimately keep the rates as low as we can for city users. I also want to just get out there for council. The plan is also to look at everything on here, including how we're doing business. So, is there a more efficient way of doing business than the in-house workforce? Is there another government entity? Is there a private way of doing this business? I want to cover everything because it's a lot of money that our city rate payers are paying. And I just want to make sure we've done all the homework on this. We've answered every question. Again, this is not a topic where I'm saying I think work wasn't done. I just think now is the time for us to get this updated. We've passed the rate increase for this year. We've established our rates, so there's not a decision that needs to be made now. And again, I just think the best thing for us to do is work this and bring you the absolute facts so that all the questions get answered. Because I feel like this is a topic second to the property tax rate that people want to understand, how are they paying and what are they paying. And then we certainly, want to make sure that our partners, in this endeavor at the moment, Hewleton, understand that we are looking for the most efficient and economical way to provide this rate, whatever the out-of-town rate will be. And that's ultimately what we'll be making a recommendation to council is here's our, what our cost structure will be for in-town rates and out-of-town rates. And then the last rate will be what I call the mobile haulers. If we build the receiving station at the plant, what rate we'll charge there. So we owe back some answers to council, and I want to make sure that they're highly accurate. So I'll open up for any questions on that topic.
I'm glad that you're working so hard on this. Accurate numbers are going to be important. We need to know how much it costs for our water, our sewer, and not mix them up with our fund balance. You know, they need to be separate. They need to be accurate, and we also need to look down the road and start some capital funds. I mean, there's no reason to, once things get so bad that we have to go out and continually borrow money, we should be putting a savings away for the future, for projects, big and small, and prepare like everyone else does for the future. Anyone else? Any other new business?
So next, Andrea is going to give just a quick update on where we are with the zombie program, and she's also got an initiative that's coming up as part of that. And I wanted to make sure that we got on record kind of with the council, but also letting the public know what's going on. So turn it over to Andrea.
Thank you. So just an update on our zombie program. This is a program that addresses the New York State Abandoned Property Neighborhood Relief Act of 2016. We received $140,000 to bolster our code enforcement efforts to be able to enforce that as a new set of laws that pertain to vacant and abandoned property here in New York State. In addition to continuing our efforts to create a digital database of vacant, abandoned, and blighted properties, we are working in this particular round of funding to really focus on providing outreach to at-risk homeowners in an effort to prevent mortgage foreclosure. In addition to mortgage foreclosure or traditional mortgage foreclosure, there's also an emphasis on helping to prevent property tax delinquency through financial independence. And through this grant funding, both Nikki Woods and myself have learned and have been partnering with North Country Housing Council, who provides free financial counseling services. That the program that they offer is free because they receive funding directly from HUD to provide those services to individuals regardless of your income throughout St. Lawrence County. So in your next sewer billing, you all will receive, or your bank will receive, if you have a traditional mortgage, for those that are escrowed, a little informational flyer that discusses and talks about the services that are available through the North Country Housing Council in an effort to, again, reach at-risk homeowners and property owners who might be struggling to make their tax payments or mortgage payments, which we know based on data at the national level due to COVID-19, this is a significant issue. We anticipate that this will continue to be an issue, not only in our community, but in communities across our country. So we're just trying to partner with the North Country Housing Council to inform our residents of services that are presently available at no charge to them. So we're working to kind of promote and encourage participation in that. And so we put something together that will be distributed throughout the county in February. So I just wanted to give everybody a little heads up on that. And there's information for the Housing Council, who to reach out to there. But if anybody has other questions, they can certainly reach out to myself in the planning office or Nikki Woods in the code office. And we'll be happy to connect you with those resources.
Thank you, Andrea.
Awesome.
Great. Next item under new. Oh, I'm sorry. Anybody have any questions? Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, well, on a similar subject, do you have any news on the little house on Green Street, Franklin Street, and it's coming up on that?
That was next on my list. So for council's information, the structure on Green Street that a car drove through a while ago, we were able to use some funds from last year that were left over in a couple of Andrea's programs to be able to secure a contractor to get that taken care of. But in the meantime, our city attorney was able to get the insurance company for the car, the person driving the car's insurance to pay the cost for that. So that we'll have that demolished at that insurance company's cost, and that contract will start here any day. At the same time, we're piggybacking on that contract using the money that Andrea had in some programs that was left over to tear down the house on Franklin Street, the fire shell that's been there for quite some time. We're using some emergency authority. I've made a determination it's a risk to health and safety. The owner has no insurance, has no ability to do it, and we're working with him to secure the release. Just to have everything together. But we're gonna move forward to get those two structures cleaned up and off the city.
Thank you both for that work. That's great. Next.
So next topic, I just wanted to bring everyone up to speed. We have had some discussion the Bass Nation fishing tournament. This is a tournament that requires a $2,500 entry fee. I've signed an initial letter of intent with them that we're interested in doing this. I just was looking to get council's thoughts, on the endeavor. I sent everybody the information. I think it's a relatively small fee. I think it'll get us started, moving down the road with with these fishing tournaments and hopefully bringing in some much needed attention and summer revenue to the city businesses. So looking for council's support tonight to confirm that we'll support that tournament this summer.
I'm very, very happy for that. Good job.
Do you need a resolution?
I definitely support any tournament you want to bring to Ogdensburg. We definitely need to jump on this. Other communities are taking them left and right. They want to be here. We're like in the center of the action. And so, yeah, you have my total support on that.
Mine as well.
So I support it.
A motion would be good. Resolution.
You want to bring a motion?
I think you should, just so we have it.
Kathy could do it.
Someone will have to make the motion.
Who?
Make a motion.
You can make the motion, Mayor.
I make a motion to bring this to a resolution.
Second it.
Kathy, would you call the roll?
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reish?
Yes.
Approved.
Is that 7? Yes. Ogdensburg has the fishing derby. Any other new business?
No, sir.
I have one, it's not under new business. It's, I should have asked a minute ago, but a while back we talked about like purchasing a Bosse's house and putting it on vacant lots. And there was something said about that. Did that ever happen? Did we ever buy the house? Is it set to go somewhere, or whatever happened with that?
So, Counselor, I think what you're referring to is it's part of one of the land bank's projects. They're looking at securing a Bosse's house and developing one of the lots with that. That's not directly a city project, but it's something that the land bank is working on. Andrew might have some more information.
That's correct. So it is the Ogdensburg Land Bank has secured one of the homes that is currently being constructed here in Ogdensburg at the Northwest Technical Institute. We will be placing that on one of the properties that that the land bank acquired from the city surplus list in September. We are looking specifically at 3 lots. We acquired 4 buildable lots. We're looking at 3 of the 4. The first of which is 520 Berry Street, 902 Ogden Street, and 427 Morris Street are the 3 lots that the board is considering placement of that home on. We have received grant funding to do 2 new construction projects, so that is one that we are doing. We're also looking at the purchase of a second modular home that would go on another of those 3 lots that I just mentioned, but the details of the second project have not been confirmed.
Andrea,
Sounds great.
I'm sorry, Steve.
No, I just said it sounds great. Any new home construction, I think Moore Street would be ideal for that one.
And I just, since we're talking about the land bank, I know it's not on your agenda, but I will mention that in accordance with New York State Land Bank law, we will be giving you an update. It will likely come from one of either the chair or vice chair. They'll be giving you their annual report in March. We'll be at your second March meeting.
Okay. Thanks.
One question, Andrew, that 427 Morris, is that one lot now? It was 3 lots back in the day before the houses were demolished. Is that one lot now?
That's correct. The city did the demolition of the structures that were there and then conducted a property survey and did a lot merger. And we also did subdivide off a small portion so that the adjacent property owner could have a compliant driveway.
Thank you.
I tell you, there's a real demand for smaller homes and 1 floor. There, somebody started throwing those up. I think they'd sell like hotcakes. Okay, and now we're on items for discussion. Does anyone have any items for discussion?
Yeah,
Yes.
I have one. I'm sorry. I
Go ahead.
interjected. I have one. I have a couple actually. One being who does the maintenance on our freight on our vehicles in the city? What general mechanic or institution does the majority of the work in for that? And my second topic was the fire chief's Tahoe. What's the status of that? I was under the impression that was back to the lease company. Oh, those are 2 of the topics I have. So
I think if I heard you right, the first one is our large, heavy vehicles. For the most part, we do our own maintenance in-house. I know the police department for their, let's say, light duty vehicles, they use Reese's Garage. I think we try to spread the light duty business around if it's something that our own repair shop can't do. So I think that's the rough answer, but I'll get you a little more definitive answer on who each department uses if the city maintenance department can't do it. I think I briefed it last meeting. I think I heard the last question you're asking about the fire chief's Tahoe. It's with the fire chief, me, parked here in the fire chief's garage, and I use it as needed. I didn't know if you had a third question. I heard the 2.
no, I guess I was under the impression that Tahoe was going back. But as far as the maintenance and the light maintenance, I know that we received a letter from Reagan's Automotive recently requesting services, and I'm wondering whether or not we're sharing the wealth or if we have a potential conflict here with a member of council and a private business. I have nothing against Stephen Reich. I've done work with him there. I just, the optics sometimes don't look all that good. It's been brought to my attention.
Yep, understand. We'll take a look. I believe it's our intent to make sure that we we ensure that we spread the business around to all the repairs stations in the city. So I'll check with each department head and we'll make sure that that's happening, Councilor.
Should we also not use any service that has the same last name as any counselor? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay, that's what it sounded like.
Doesn't have anything to do with it. It has to do with the fact that they're family and that could pose an issue. I don't have anything against it. It was brought to my attention. I was asked to bring it forward, and I am.
That's fine.
I'd like to go back to the Tahoe. So you think that could be shared with the mayor? I mean, I get my plow on my truck, and sometimes it's handy to have a vehicle that's easier to drive around. No, you're keeping it, eh? Okay. Anything else for discussion?
I just have a question on code enforcement. Is our code enforcement officer gone now? And if so, who's currently doing code enforcement?
Councilor, I sent all of you an email announcing that Greg Millett had retired as of last Friday.
Oh, yeah.
It won't shock all of you to know that the city manager is now the code enforcement officer, adding to the multiple titles that I already have. Little humor there, sir. No pun intended. We're canvassing the list now. The county provided us the list of eligible candidates. Andrea is working with the civil service office to weed out and get all the viable candidates. And I hope we'll be doing interviews in the near future for that position.
I'd like to bring up a point. So when you're using the code enforcement car now, would that free up the Tahoe for me a little bit or no?
And Councilor Scamperly, in the interim, certainly our housing inspector is helping with the administrative duties, et cetera. And we have 4 certified code enforcement officers at the fire department should something come up that we need the services of one of them. So that's our plan, how we're going to cover the services in the interim until we get somebody hired.
Okay. I just don't want there to be a slowdown in permits and variances and things like that. So.
Absolutely.
I tell you, one thing with code enforcement, I find, and I get a lot of people contact me, is garbage. Garbage is such a big issue. You almost wonder if the city shouldn't hire, a trash company to just take all the trash for every citizen, because this is really getting out of hand. So many people are not being responsible with their trash. Is it possible that the fire department, the code enforcement people could help with this issue? I know it's a real nuisance for everybody, but it is a big problem. If you live next to somebody and they're just collecting garbage all winter, and then it gets to be spring, and then by the process takes so long. In fact, actually, council should someday look at this of redoing this process, that it takes so long to get it cleaned up. Is there any possibility of having help there?
So there is. I think we're addressing, all those issues daily. Recently, Andrea, Shane met with the city attorney with some recommendations on how we can improve our code. Excuse me. They'll be back to us with some recommendations soon on things that we can do to help expedite getting them through the judicial process, and things that we can do internally to do it. I think there isn't any of these things we can address. I think the frustration that we all have with it is the process never moves fast enough. Very few times do we have authority to just go do something. I mean, it's one thing we write a violation. It's another thing to be able to enforce that, and it's all a judicial process, unfortunately. The city attorney has made some good recommendations. I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of the work that he's doing with Andrea and Shane and the code team on this, because some of our penalties, for instance, just as an example, were kind of holding us up a little bit because there are criminal level penalties associated with those that then give somebody a whole lot of different rights to due process than if they're administrative or code violations. So we're looking to try to get that cleaned up to help expedite really the expediency of moving this through. I really, sir, don't think it's an issue of us not identifying them or not handling them. It's really an issue of how long it takes us to get some kind of action through the court. So we'll keep working on that. I did address, our concern with the new city judge and the new alternate city judge, and I think they both understand it's a top priority for the city. Both have said that it's not their intent to have anything lingering longer than it has to. So I think we're hitting all the bases with trying to improve this process, but I do tell you that it will always be a bit cumbersome, and it's very frustrating to be a neighbor to some place and to feel like the city's moving slowly getting it done. So we're staying on top of it.
One thing in discussion during citizen participation, I noticed that I was looking through minutes, and I do notice that some citizens say one thing during one council and different things to this council. In 2016, when the tax rate went up 20%, the same citizen that's asking complains that services have been cut, said that 20% was too much, and that the city should cut everything but bare bones. Just have, his words were, I believe, we just need to have essentials and not have 20% tax increase. This year, we're given a 10% tax rate, and we're going to start rebuilding our city also. And to do that, we have cut some services, but I don't think anything's falling apart. And in fact, actually, things have been falling apart. We're going to rebuild them. So that's it for me. Any other discussion?
Yes, sir. The last topic I wanted to address council with tonight, just under discussion, was the topic of grants. To coincide with the budget brief that we'll give council that second meeting every month, we're also, during that, there'll be a grants brief as well. Andrew and I will send out a good summary here in the next few days, just kind of giving a history of where we've been with grants over the last, let's just say, 10 years. Because I want council to see all the grant opportunities that we have taken advantage of, and then the grant opportunities that we're currently either executing or we've got application to. The other thing that we're going to do is during that briefing, we'll talk every month about the grant opportunities that we have seen, and be able to give council, hey, we saw a list of grants. Here's the ones that we think are something in there that go towards a program we're doing. Here's things that we think are not applicable that we may be referring or working with other entities, et cetera. But one of the things that I want council to understand is that the grant administration, looking for grants, seeking grants, executing grants, is a real large part of what Andrea's group does all the time. And quite honestly, we wouldn't get a lot of anything done without grants. But I want council to know, that our efforts are on that all the time. So we will get that briefing every month. And that way, if a councilor sees that we are taking a pass on a particular grant opportunity, they can question why and talk about it. And then certainly if somebody sees a grant opportunity that they don't hear us briefing on, then they can bring that up, and we'll either talk about why we didn't, or maybe we just haven't got that. But I do want to make sure that we're all leaning as far forward as we can with grant opportunities, and council understands any decisions that we make to pursue, excuse me, or not pursue. That I think that's important for all of us. My philosophy of the grants is just this, though. I'm not grant shopping for an opportunity that isn't something at the moment that isn't targeting something we're doing. I'm not saying something couldn't come along, but just remember a grant is a mechanism of funding something that we need or something that we do, which really also goes with, it means it's a project. So our first focus when we're looking at grant opportunities when they come up is how do they match up with things that we're currently doing or priorities that council has given us. So for any project that you have, one of the first things that we do once we get the project and understand what the scope is, we start looking at how we're going to fund it. And the last way we look at funding any project certainly is with city taxpayer dollars. We look, is there grant opportunities, is there state, federal level funding, et cetera. So that's what I'm looking for by way from council is what are projects, what are things that you want us working on that you don't see. And the last handout that I sent out with your packets is really just city manager action items. And I wanted you to see the top 12, 15 things that are kind of running through my desk all the time and through one of the staff offices. I'm not going to read through each of these. You can all see them. If you want to shoot me a note if there's something you don't agree with, if you want to better understand why something's on the list. I would say the first top 5 or 6 are in priority order. The rest of them I would say are not particular in any priority. They're just things that are going on. The ones that I've highlighted in bold are the ones that are currently we're fully in motion on right now. The rest of them are ones that we're either ramping up or just getting started on working on. But these are the things that we're working on. The large things. There's lots of small items, small action items and routine daily business. But this is the core of what we're focused on right now. And I certainly appreciate the input from all of you on what we're working on. And we will be updating on these things as we hit significant milestones with each one of them. So the last thing by way of updates is if you all can expect to see in the next couple days, we've created a little bit different format for giving council an update, but each department will we'll be keeping an update on what will be a singular chart for each department and kind of with 4 quads. First in the quad will be personnel, the second will be priorities, the third will be projects, and the 4th quad will be problems. So the council sees at any given time, and those will be updated at least monthly, but I would call them living in it. I'll ask each of the department heads to keep those updated all the time so council sees the things that are getting worked on in bullet form, and when you want more information, certainly shoot back to us. That'll also be on the website, so the community sees what is being worked on in each of the major areas for everybody. So I'm hoping this level of information flow will answer a lot of questions for the council and for the public, and again, spurn questions and things that you want additional information on.
One quick comment here, Steve, on your talks here. As far as the Ready Project and the Oswegatchie and Maple City Trail there, I don't know if that'd be something to look at to enhance the view of that Maple City Trail, but that winding hill that goes from pretty much the pump house all the way to the footbridge is in dire need of some serious remediation. And I know city staff do a great job in the summer, and there's been other ventures out there as well. But I don't know if we could get a study or something of that nature on that, and have that looked at and significantly. I don't know how you could do it, quite frankly, but it would surely enhance the Maple City Trail. That we've got a lot of grant money and a lot of people use it.
Yes, sir. We'll take a look.
Question, did we apply for the SAFE grant or the SAFER grant for the fire department?
So we did not apply for the SAFER grant in last year's round. When the next round of SAFER opens through FEMA, we will look at the requirements and parameters, and then I will come to council with a recommendation on the applicability for us to apply. SAFER is SAFER in this last year with COVID had less parameters than normal due to the COVID. I don't know if that will continue this year, but when the period opens up, Councilor, we will certainly look at it, evaluate it, and I'll bring it to council for a recommendation.
Thank you.
Yep. By way of that, though, sir, just the Fire Act grant period is open now, which is for equipment. And we are looking now at the needs of the fire department and getting a grant application in based on the needs. So that's got a mid-February deadline. It comes pretty fast, but I believe we'll have at least one submission for the Fire Act grant program.
Excellent, thank you.
Anything else? Everyone done? Okay, and this brings us to citizen participation. At this time, if anyone attending remotely would like to address council, please use the raise hand feature.
The first individual is registered as Michael Tooley, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears you are self-muted, sir.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. With regard to the discussion on plan alternates for the wastewater capital project, when governing boards review bids for projects, it's not unusual to hold off on alternates so you'll see what the cost of the main project is. Sometimes you come across unexpected events and drive up the cost of the main project that prohibit you from pursuing alternates. So it's not unusual to hold off until you see what the cost is and see if you still have room to pursue alternates. So having said that, I don't think personally I would be critical of fire council decisions to hold off on choosing the alternates at the time they awarded the original. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for pointing that out, Mike.
The next individual is registered as David Price, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears your line is open.
Council, I just want to make a couple comments. The mayor was just commenting about how people say different things in the past than they say in the present. Being a student of history, I have a memory of some things that people said. At one point this spring, somebody said, we don't need a city manager, and now we have a city manager. Last meeting, I heard the mayor say that we were sending back the Tahoe because we didn't need it, and now I hear him wanting to borrow it from the guy who has charge of it. So apparently we're keeping the Tahoe. So that's some history of how people change their story. Now, let me give you another history lesson because, as you may or may not know, I'm a history nerd and I really love this stuff. So throughout history, leaders have used newspapers to promote their agendas. Hitler had Vorwärts, which was a German version of a paper that meant forward. Mussolini borrowed the idea and used Avanti. That was the Italian newspaper that meant forward. And of course, Stalin used the newspaper called Pravda, which ironically was named The Truth. So now what we have is paid ads in a local newspaper. All of these have the same thing in common: the attempt of a totalitarian government to control the thoughts and actions of people. So I just want to leave that with everyone and say, we really have to be careful about what we're doing and what we're paying attention to, because unlike in the 1920s and 30s, this electorate is an educated one.
Like that song.
I don't see any other hands raised. Oh, I apologize. One just popped up. Would you like me to take that one, Mayor?
Yes.
The individual is registered as Brian Mitchell, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears you are self-muted.
Good evening. I just have one question. With the snow flying and everything else, now we have a code enforcement officer, a fire chief, a comptroller, a city rec director, and a city manager controlling our code enforcement. Is he going to go out and control where the snow is being pushed throughout the city? The other day I was on the other side of town and noticed a filtration plant. And it looked like from Washington School, which a certain individual doesn't want to pay his taxes on it at the going rate, pushing the snow across to the filtration plant. Is this going to be enforced by our code enforcement officer, fire chief, city rec director, and city manager on the days that he's in Tupper Lake? I'm just wondering if this is going to be addressed and the snow will be dealt with the same it would be for any individual. The other thing, public updates. Thanks for updating the webpage as you said you're going to. If you click through, most of the stuff on there is from 2017, 16, 15. It looks like we have no city business that's happened for the last year. It'd be nice to update the webpage in the middle of being the code enforcement officer, fire chief, comptroller, city rec director, and city manager. Thanks for your time and have a good night.
I don't see any other hands raised.
I personally would like to thank you for putting that financial restructuring board information up there on the city website. And I encourage citizens to look at the city web page and the financial restructuring board, and really some good information in there. I mean, they did a great job for the city. And are we done? Kathy, is that it?
Yes. There are no hands raised.
Okay. We do not we have no need for executive session tonight at this time. I will make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second it.
All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Adjourned.